So before we get into that, let's just define a couple terms. So when you say ultra-processed foods, can you be precise?
Yeah, for sure. So the NOVA classification, and there's many different classifications for different kinds of food processing, and there's pros and cons with each one. So there's no perfect system. But the NOVA classification was developed by scientists in Brazil. It's now their standard of care for their food programs and dietary guidelines. So non-processed food is a tomato, an egg, an apple, an almond. You know what that is, right? But if you make almond butter, well, that's a little bit of minimally processed food. If you make a can of tomatoes, that's minimally processed. And there's another level of, processing that you use in cooking. It's a little more sort of processing of things, but it's not made from anything other than real food ingredients. The fourth classification is ultra processed. And this is essentially where they take commodity crops, which are funded with our federal dollars, supporting farmers who are losing the game.
And that's corn, soybeans, and
corn,
wheat.
soybean, and wheat. And by the way, the farmers are suffering so bad. Tucker, there's a 350% higher rate of suicide in farmers than there are in the rest of the population. There's $435 billion of farmer debt that they carry to support us. And they're stuck between the crop insurance that the government's paying, the banks, which are providing them the loans, and the agrochemical and seed companies that are providing the fertilizer, the seeds, and the chemicals that they're spraying on their farm. And they can't get out of that toxic loop. And they're struggling. Those rural communities are struggling so bad, and that can be fixed. And so when you look at I lost my train of thought.
Ultra-processed
okay.
foods. So processed is any food that's been changed in its composition.
Yes.
So,
right. So what happens is they're growing these commodity crops that the government's basically supporting them funding of wheat, corn, and soy, but you're not eating wheat berries or whole grain. You're not eating true whole soybeans. You're not eating just corn on the cob. These are deconstructed in factories and science labs into their molecular components, are torn apart and rebuilt into these chemically extruded food-like substances of all colors, sizes, and shapes that are not by definition food. If you look up the Webster's Dictionary definition of food, it's not actually technically food. And so what most Americans are eating is stuff that actually is harmful, that's causing disease and killing people. It's literally, think about it, the equivalent of 2 Holocausts a year are caused by the food we're eating, according to the Global Burden of Disease Study. So how do you know it when
you see it? You said 70% of our grocery store offerings are ultra-processed food.
The food labeling is a big issue, and is one of our key initiatives. I think if we move forward in this administration, it has to be addressed. People need informed consent. They need to be empowered with the right information. They need to know what they're eating, whether it's good or bad for them.